Yeti went a-wandering out under crimson skies. He rode a blood-red Bronco Sport with dust in both his eyes. He scanned the stormy mesa's edge where lightning cracked the dome, then whispered soft to Cam the grouch, "We're never heading home." Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-oh, the hunter rides alone. Yippee-yi-yo.
Welcome to the very first edition of Road Shots with the Arizona Yeti. We're going to be talking with Colin Peabody. If you're familiar with Ramsey Canyon Preserve, you know that it is a birder's paradise. But it's difficult to imagine what life would be like before the preserve became a preserve. Well, in this show, Colin is going to share with us his experiences as he grew up in this iconic area and give us a little bit of a glimpse into what it was like to live in Ramsey Canyon before it became a preserve.
An unknown under pressure. But myself, my family moved to Ramsey Canyon in the summer of 1960, in between my sophomore and junior year in high school. And we moved into what was then the Mile High Ranch, owned by a couple by the name of Kenneth and Joy Simpson. They were retiring and had to move to the valley, and they needed to sell the property, and my folks had always wanted to move out of Tucson. We'd lived there for about 8 years. So we moved up here. A realtor brought us up here. As soon as we pulled into the parking area, we fell in love with this place. And we got invited into the house by Champ, the German Shepherd guard dog. And Champ. One of the caveats of the sale was if Champ doesn't like you, you don't get to buy the place.
Oh!
So he came with the place. So the deal was made that day, and we drove back to Tucson. The realtor sold our house in Tucson. We moved the next weekend up here.
So needless to say, you had not only the opportunity to grow up in this wonderful little oasis in the middle of the desert, but you got to know the people and the personalities and the characters that also occupied this area.
Yes, and there were quite a few characters, so to speak. There was the neighbors up above, the Browns, Bill Brown and his wife Nell and their daughter Ruth. They were caretakers for Dr. Nelson Bledsoe's place.
Place that you grew up, we're standing right next to a building that has replaced the house that you used to live in. Is that correct?
The visitor center that's directly behind me is on the same floor plan as the house that we lived in.
I see.
It was a large house. There were two sycamore trees that were right here that spanned this whole area and kept it all shaded. And my folks' bedroom spanned the creek, went all the way across.
Oh, wow.
With windows on both sides. So
the creek ran underneath your parents' bed?
The creek ran underneath the house.
Wow,
yes.
that must have been exceptionally cool.
Well, my parents thought it was great. You know, they could go to sleep every night with the sound of the
trickling water running underneath them. Wow.
We had a telephone that had been installed probably a year or so before we moved down here. Two-party line. The Browns up above, Dr. Bledsoe's, were the other party on the line. So whenever we wanted to make a call, we knew that Mrs. Brown was going to be listening.
How about we take a walk around the preserve in this area that you grew up?
Okay.
And talk about a few of the places that you experienced. Yeah.
Put up a house, move in, and that's it. There's nothing left to do other than sit on the couch and eat potato chips all day long.
No, this place required a lot of maintenance. The buildings that were here The main house, which is what we're looking at right now, it's since been torn down and the visitor center has taken its place. But the house required some maintenance as well. It was an older house. And the other properties, the other cabins that were on the property also required maintenance, as well as the water system. We had a gravity feed water system with a cistern tank that set back up behind where this tree is, where we're standing in front of now. And it gravity fed all of the houses here on the property at that point in time.
Now, during monsoon season, I'm sure that you had to do some sort of work in order to prevent flooding from happening into the house.
Well, we did. When we first moved here, this whole area sloped down to the house. As you can see, it's down below us here. And we had to put in several terraces to kind of divert the flow of the water off into the creek again. And my job after I got home from school was to gather up the rocks, bring them down here, and over the weekend my dad and I would cement them into place and then backfill them with granite so that we had level areas all the way down. The primary source of heat in the house were the fireplace and a wood-burning stove. And that required, when we weren't building terraces, that required Dad and I, we went out into the county and cut down old black oak trees that were dead and brought them back to the house. We cut them into lengths that we could handle. It was my job to split them and stack them so that we had at least a cord of wood that would last us for a couple of 3 weeks.
So, Colin, I'm curious that everyday life around the Ramsey Canyon, especially you were in high school at the time.
Yes, I was. Mm-hmm.
And so that means you weren't just doing work around the house, you also had homework to do.
I did. One of my jobs, as I mentioned earlier, is to drag in rocks for the terracing down there, and we cut wood on the weekends. So our homework got done after dark, when it was too dark to see anything out here, and it was just better time to do that. We had a big dining room with a big table. My sister and I could sit in there and do that during the week. On weekends, though, my sister would come up. There's a rock back behind us, big rock that the creek is flowing over the top of, and it usually would flow one side or the other, and she would come up and sit on that rock, and she would do her homework on Sunday afternoons.
So this giant slab of rock right behind me was
that was homework rock.
Homework rock.
and it was slippery at times because, as you can see now, it has some algae alongside of where the water's running over. But when we had monsoons, that rock, you couldn't see it because the water was flowing over it. But in those days, Ramsey Canyon Road was a two-tire lane dirt road from Highway 92 all the way up to the residence up there at Dr. Bledsoe's. So it was a little difficult to drive sometimes in inclement weather, and especially when it snowed.
So over the decades since you moved away, you've seen a lot of transition within the preserve. What are some of the things that you've recognized? What are some things that you wish were the same, and what are some of the things you're thankful that have been changed?
Well, obviously the things that needed to be changed were the water treatment system. The houses that were here were all fed by a spring that came out right at the base of this big rock that we're sitting in front of, and we had walled it off so it had a reservoir pipe in there, and the water was piped down to a reservoir down low, and then gravity fed all the houses. That needed to be changed, obviously. My folks catered primarily to bird watchers that would come in, and they would spend a week or two in one of the cabins, and They scouted all around. They did everything that they thought they could do in Ramsey Canyon and along the San Pedro River, where there are an awful lot of birds. So that's the kind of folks that my mom and dad really catered to and took care of.
Well, let me take you back to when you first started living here and experiencing Ramsey Canyon. What are some of the fondest memories that you have from being here?
The scariest thing that we encountered when we first moved here, my dad was working in Tucson, my mom and my sister and I were in the house, and we had a huge thunderstorm out across the Sulphur Springs, or the San Pedro Valley. And the lightning going to the ground over closer to Tombstone echoed all the way up the canyon. Scared the living bejesus right out of me. But the rest of the stuff was just the ability to see the animals that were here. We had javelina here, we had coatimundis, we had raccoons, we had foxes, a bear or two. We had plenty of rattlesnakes. We had to be careful where we walked, that we didn't step on a rattlesnake. But some of the fondest memories we had, when it would snow here, this place was the most beautiful, serene place and peaceful that you could ask for. Christmas time here, my mom decorated for Christmas, and it was just a nice, this was a great place for a young person to grow up. It's absolutely just great.
Well, you talked a lot about the work it took just to maintain the house and the area around the house, but you didn't limit yourself to just your house and your residence. You also helped out some of the neighbors that lived up here in the canyon.
Yes, so I kind of learned how to do some of the plumbing repairs by helping Mr. Brown, helping Mr. Hennis down below, from what I had learned from my dad. Because we had to do some plumbing repairs here. Whenever it would freeze, we would have to thaw out the water in the pipes. We had pipes that ran across the creek from one cabin to another, and we would have to thaw that out. And sometimes we had to replace pipes and what have you. So I learned quite a bit the first few years that I was here. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't want to be a plumber.
Well, you did a heck of a lot more. I mean, after you graduated from high school, I'm assuming Buena High School?
I graduated in Buena High School, 1962. It would have been the first full four-year graduating class from Buena High School. I went to work for Cochise County Highway Department, and I learned a pretty good trade there. How to operate heavy equipment, dump trucks. We built roads.
You were part of the road crew that did Charleston Road and the Charleston Crossing, aren't you?
The very first job I did with Cochise County Highway Department, one of the county trucks had gone through the bridge that went across the river at Charleston.
So it wasn't just watching the growth of Ramsey Canyon, but you also watched the growth of an entire community outside of Ramsey Canyon and participated in its growth.
Exactly.
You were a member of the crew that built roads that now we take for granted. So,
in fact, the Charleston Road at that time was a dirt road, and I worked on that, both operating a front end loader to load trucks, and we seal coated that whole road. And then the next year we did Charleston into Tombstone. And somewhere along the line we did Ramsey Canyon Road. That was the next project after that.
Well, what do you say about taking a little bit of a walk up here and talking about some of these other structures?
That's fine with me, sure.
Okay. Colin, I got to tell you, there's a lot of structures still up here. I know there were a lot more structures when you were growing up. As a matter of fact, when you got married, you moved into a structure that no longer exists.
That's right.
But we are still surrounded by some relics. This cabin right behind us.
This cabin right here, I have no idea when it was built. Probably around the turn of the century, maybe a little later. My folks had some guests that came and stayed several years ago, a good number of years ago, and they honeymooned in that cabin in 1938 or 1939.
Now we just passed another structure over here, a much larger house. It looks like a ranch house on stilts and everything. Tell us a little bit about that place.
That house belonged to, Dr. Bledsoe owned the property, obviously, but that house, he gave it to his sister, Venita. And she lived in it for a good number of years. She had passed away before we came down here. So after she passed away, Dr. Bledsoe didn't let anybody live in that house at all. That was hers, and he just pretty much boarded it up. I've only been in it maybe once or twice. But you know, there were houses here just across from where you and I are standing, leaning. There had been a cabin there that had been torn down. Dr. Bledsoe had that torn down, but there were still some pipes running from the water supply up above. And we dug those up. Mr. Brown and I dug those up and used those to recycle in the plumbing for the orchard down below here by Venita Bledsoe's house.
I think it was you that told me this. I'm pretty sure it was. There was at one point near the end that was kind of a party house where they played music and they had
yes, there was a dance hall up here.
A dance hall. That's
and people
right.
would come from all around Fort Huachuca, Bisbee, Tombstone. They would come over here on weekends and have dance parties. And after Dr. Bledsoe got the property in about the early 1930s, that's about when that stopped. He had that dance hall torn down. I don't even know where the exact site of that was at, but it was up close to where his two houses are.
I see.
So he had that torn down.
Too much noise, too much traffic.
A little bit of everything, yeah. And he wanted to keep this place as close to what God gave it as possible. And that was his idea, that, you know, he wanted to do that.
So a dance hall in Ramsey Canyon, I mean, can you believe that? A dance hall of all things.
Well,
can you imagine this whole area being packed with cars from the 20s and the 30s, you know, and people, yeah, just
and bootleggers.
And bootleggers
yep.
too.
Yep.
Yeah, rowdy crew back then.
As I understand it, the soldiers from Fort Huachuca would come up here, and of course you're retired from the Army. I'm sure that in your younger days, if you'd have been around in the 20s, you'd have been up here too.
I would have been up here in a heartbeat.
Yeah, probably so. You know, and miners from Bisbee, in any place there was a party, you know, they would go. So this was a recreational area at best, and that a lot of people had cabins up here. And when Dr. Bledsoe took possession of the property, he started clearing them out. And that leads us to something else about when did my folks get involved in the conservancy part of this? Because Dad had talked to Dr. Bledsoe and they had discussed stuff, and my dad talked to him about the possibility of willing this property to the Nature Conservancy. And my dad was pretty persuasive and was able to convince Dr. Bledsoe to do just exactly that. And that's how the Nature Conservancy wound up with this beautiful property.
So it's a gift.
It was a gift, yes it was.
So it's been a long time. I mean, you live up in the Phoenix area now.
Yes.
You're retired from service.
After I left here in January 1968, I joined the Arizona Highway Patrol, and I went to the academy in Phoenix. And from there, I was stationed in Winslow. I spent 6 years in beautiful downtown Winslow, Arizona.
Winslow, Arizona.
Standing on a corner.
Standing on a corner.
Yeah.
In your patrol car.
Yeah, as a matter of fact. And then after I did 6 years up there, transferred into Phoenix, and we've been in Phoenix now for over 50 years.
Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for yours.
And man, I got to tell you, it's been such an honor to have you join us on this little walk through the canyon.
It's an honor for me to be able to be present and talk about some of the history of Ramsey Canyon, of this area, before it was the Nature Conservancy, basically.
You know, we walk through this canyon on a regular basis. I come out here with Cam, and I take pictures and try and grab the different seasons and really, without giving much of a thought, Colin, to
life as it might have been before this became a place where I could do this freely and with the peace and quiet that it offers to visitors. But I don't know how many people who are familiar with the area actually think about what it took just to coexist with the land up here, because it is such a far cry from just a couple miles to the east of us.
That's right. When you go down to follow down Ramsey Canyon Road and make the curve that goes towards Highway 92, that was all cattle company or country then, and the Newmans ranched it, and a couple of other folks. And you look at it now, there's not an acre of land that doesn't have a house on it, it seems like,
right,
you know.
Yeah.
So people who drive up that road now probably have no idea of what it looked like before and what it took to build up in this area, you know.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sean, and I appreciate you. And now that we have formally met and spent some time together, we'll do this more often.
It sounds wonderful.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this pilot episode of Road Shots with the Arizona Yeti. I'm Sean Yeti, and I've been your host throughout this episode, and we've been walking through Ramsey Canyon Preserve with Colin Peabody, and he has shared with us some of the incredible stories of what it was like to live here. And my goodness, I got to tell you, life was hard back then, or so it seems, but he had some wonderful stories, and I'm so thankful to him for traveling down here from Phoenix area just to be able to participate in this inaugural episode of Road Shots. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sean Yetarian, aka the Arizona Yeti. Remember, the most beautiful place in the world is right there where you are. See you next time, folks.
So if you hear a distant click while staring at the sky, you've seen the Arizonan Yeti's work just as he passed you by. Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-oh, yippee-yi-oh, a ghost behind the sky. Yippee-yi-yay, as the seasons pass on by. Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-oh, he hides behind the storm.